Hey, Thippaporn, thank you for coming in. Oh, we have such a remarkable, outstanding history of contribution. It's just an incredible journey and narrative of perseverance, resilience, and hard work and success and contribution both on the sustainable business side, but also the research and on the social impact side. And you being awarded all these magnificent awards. I know there was this Leaders on Purpose a program over consecutive years. You've been selected as one of the top impact CEOs amongst the global top impact CEOs as well. I would say, in my opinion, the most remarkable person I've ever met in my entire life. So I want to get some of that captured. So I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your insights with our audience.
Thank you so much. Hi, Stephen.
So to the audience, Thippaporn's name, of course, is Thippaporn, and she has this magnificent Thai first and last name, but we call her B or Kunbi. Kunbi is like saying, it's like an honoring a way of addressing people. So I'm going to call her Kunbi in the interview. So when you hear me say Kunbi, it's actually Thippaporn. So I'm just telling that to my audience. Okay, so Kunbi, as I mentioned, you got this marvelous career, founding of DTGO, and of course, there's all these different organizations underneath it, and then you're definitely involved in social impact initiatives in many different ways, and you have these research labs and so on. And earlier you decided to become an engineer, and you got a really good engineering background as well. So there had to be inflection points in your life that really shaped to who you are, this wonderful person that's making so many different global impacts in so many positive directions. And it could have been when you were 5 years old or 10. It could have been interactions with people in your family, outside of the family. It could have been people in school. Could have been hobbies you had. What are those magic moments in your life that created this magnificent person that you are today?
Thank you. If you talk about as a child, when I was really young, when I started going to school.
Yeah, that would be a good story.
I think you might heard about this, but when I started going to school, kindergarten, my dad would ask me every day after I come back from school, what is there any bad thing you have done today? With your friend or anything at school. And then I would think about what have I done wrong. And then there's some little things that I have done wrong every day. Like I wasn't being nice to my friend. I didn't let my friend borrow my pencil or things like that. Or even I trick my friends. And then when he draw that out for me, when he draw that out for me, that what I have done wrong, then I realized that I have done wrong, and I feel sad about it. And my father would tell me that it's good that you're aware that you have done something wrong, but don't be sad too long. He say, good that you realize that, and now you regret. And he said, don't stay with the regret too long. Continue to think, how can you make it up tomorrow? How can you improve the situation tomorrow? So that teach me to reflect, to realize, to regret, and then I move on. I start thinking because he made the question that, okay, what would you do tomorrow? So I would go like, okay, tomorrow I'll go and apologize. I'll bring her candies and I'll help my teacher carry things and things like that, little things like that. And then when I go to school tomorrow, I would do things that I tell my father would do. And it makes things better. I feel better. Eventually I stop doing bad things. And I start telling him that, when my dad asked, did you do any bad things today? And I would confidently tell him that no, but today I share my candy with my friends, or I help teacher carry things. And he would, he would hold me. Imagine I was a tiny girl and really tiny, like kindergarten. He would hold me, look at me in a very loving way and say, I'm so proud of you. And that moment, it brings a lot of happiness and pride to me. So I think with that experience it start making me don't want to do bad things. Every day I want to come home and tell him what good thing I have done. And that as I grow up, as life getting more difficult and difficult, things happen in life. The learning I have learned at that period of time actually helped me a lot. In work, in life, sometimes you make mistakes. Then every day I reflect, what have I done wrong today? And sometimes I feel bad, and then I would move my thinking to, then how do I fix it? A lot of time when I say negative things to my colleagues, my team, a few of them would receive my call at midnight. I apologize for being mean to you. Things like that. So, but it's not only that, but it's a lot of things that I make mistake in life, in business, at work, or even with people around me. It helped me reflect, realize, regret, apologize, and move on. So that is, I think that is one lesson that's very important in my life, and I'm still using it now.
I mean, that's a major inflection point, right? Because it provided a foundation for your thinking, but also there's a concept of theory of the mind, and that is sort of thinking about the other and thinking about how they view things and putting yourself in their shoes. So that I could see that how that really helped shape you. Is there something else that happened maybe later in your life, or?
Yes, another incident that shifted my life is when I was in college. My brother come up with this project of helping social, and we start to do fundraising. I was secretary of the team, and that was my first job during college. No pay, but among my brother, sister, and cousins and friends, we start fundraising to bring the money to help the poor in Thailand. And surprisingly, we was able to raise a lot of money. From my uncle, from my father, from friends, families, and then we went to a few places to give out money. I went with my brother, and giving out things and money, and it really bring happiness. But one time I went alone. The remaining cash that we didn't use, I went to an orphanage to give the cash to the orphanage, and I went alone. And when I get to the place, the teacher come with a little kid, and then she told me the school, the orphanage place. But that little kid come and grab my hand, and then I was thinking that, oh, he's so cute, and so I keep smiling to him, talking to him, hold his hand as we tour around the school, and he didn't let go of my hand throughout the time that I spent at the school, including the meeting time with the teacher. He was like really hold my hand, and I didn't realize that how important it was. Just thinking that, I just throw him around. But then there's a time that I have to leave. I was letting go his hand, and he wouldn't let go. And then I couldn't get in the car because he wouldn't let go of my hand.
Yep.
And then Tisha tried to ask him to let go of my hand, and he wouldn't, until she had to, take his hand away from me. And then he started crying and crying and crying so badly, that I just break my heart. I get in my car, I left, but he was still crying, screaming and crying. And that's another thing that is make me feel like I start, that time I feel like his lack of love. I start to realize how little kids really need love and attention. And that shifts my career path a lot. as you know, from that situation, and maybe more situations that lead me into doing social work. But every time when I refresh, when I think about him, it's still very fresh in my mind. And that make me think about how to really help them, not only with food, education, shelter, but how can I really give them the love? I alone cannot do it, but I keep thinking on how can I pass the love to them through many loving people who have time to go and hug them every day, say kind things to them, being a part to them. So that's what I have been trying through my life.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that shaping in all of the social impact work that you have. There's definitely a supporting children and young people in their journeys, from whether it's education or shelter or food or all the aspects of life. You've been very a big contributor in that area. You mentioned that you took this project on when you were in college. But you were studying engineering at Boston College. Can you describe that journey? Because I mean, I'm an older person, and when I was younger, it was rare for women to go into engineering. So that would have been even now you find that there, at least in the West, there isn't as many women going in engineering as, let's say, other people and so on. So what inspired you to go into engineering? Because you'd be, like a minority, and you went to the US as well. So what inspired you to take it engineering? And engineering is very, very difficult. So,
Well, I am not a, top A student or anything. I'm just a normal person. But I went to high school in New Jersey, the Winewood School, and my physics teacher was so inspiring. He made the learning a lot of fun and very interesting. So I really like physics. But at the same time, I also like art a lot. So I always think that I will be an architect. But I also like physics a lot. So so I was thinking that, being either architect or engineer. And I applied for both. But with my bad personality, my brother, he was teasing me. I think that year, um, there's a lot of engineer drop off, in the news. And once my brother know that I am applying for engineering school, he teach me. He say, "Oh, B, you're gonna, you get in the school and you drop off next year. No, don't go. Don't do it." Right? I think that is with my bad personality of want to win. No,
Okay.
I right away decided to go to engineering school. But
So,
actually, I like both. I like engineering and I like art.
so that's a strength, right? A strength is resilience and perseverance and dedication and commitment, and engineering is difficult, and so that takes hard work. And so you're willing to put in the work to get a bachelor's in engineering, and Boston College is a very good school as well. So it's one of the best schools out there. And then and so you talked about early on your dad taking you and sort of getting you to reflect, and that somewhat has shaped you to think about the other and ensuring that you're a positive influence on the other and on your actions and the result of your actions, and making sure that leads to positive outcomes. So, so that's an interesting time. And then you go and take on this project, and you end up realizing the needs of children, and they don't have enough, and realizing that you got to work ways to ensure that children are nurtured and cared for, so that they can grow up to be positive citizens and contribute in any way they can. And then engineering and sort of going against maybe tradition, or choosing engineering, which is very difficult, and yet you persevered and you worked hard and you made a commitment, and that's at one of the best schools. So those are life lessons for people, right? That help children in positive ways. Reflect on your actions and making sure that you reflect so that you can make corrections and add positivity to people's lives. And then this whole aspect of perseverance and hard work, no matter what the challenge is, make sure uh, you pursue those challenges and work through it through hard work. So do you have any other inflection point that you want to talk about?
But actually, Stephen, is there are two things. When people see I help social, sometimes they see tangible things, like build school, provide food, education. Those are very tangible. But what they don't see, and what I have been very focused on, is how to pass love
Yeah.
and pass goodness, so that they grow up to be a good people, and teach them how to be happy by helping others. I think those are the intangible things that, to me, it's more important than tangible, or maybe as important. Um, and also, you mentioned about hard work in engineering school and things like that. Um, I am not the type of person who work really hard, to get good grades or things like that. But I'm more like an artist who really follow my heart. Like I I spend a lot of time. Uh, people can say it's a hard work on things I like, but to me, it's not a hard work, because when you do things that you like, it's really enjoyable. Even though it's difficult sometimes, it's with a lot of pressure on you, but because you are following your dreams, it's always beautiful. And there are many hard times in my life, but I keep my dream shining, and walk through the difficulties with delightful heart. I think that is important. So it doesn't, if people who know me, I'm not a really hardworking student, but I put a lot of time effort on things that I like, or I love to do, or I have dream to follow.
So there's you're inspired, right? You're inspired by passion, things that are you're passionate about that are close to your heart. And for that reason, it doesn't appear as work to you because it's a passion. And foundational to everything you do is this idea of goodness and love. And ensuring that those are the qualities that you can inspire and pass on, and through all of your relationships and everything that you do, that foundationally people have this aura of love and goodness, and ultimately that's going to result in more love, more goodness, right? Because you pass it on and it becomes like an infectious. People will acquire these items, including your passion that you have as well. So you have this engineering degree from Boston University College, and then, but what inspired you to start? What was the passion behind starting your companies?
As my actually, I told my father that I went to an. I will tell my father that I plan to go to architecture school,
Yeah.
and I went to engineering school without telling him properly. No, and then actually there were times during the college that I want to change back into architecture school. So I think I keep confusing him. So by the time I graduated, he asked me to design his new home. He thought I'm an architect and he want to build a new home. So he asked me to design his new home. Um, and I told him that, oh, actually I'm an electrical engineer. I'm supposed to work on one of his business, but I'm not allowed to work in his company at the time. And he doesn't want me to be an engineer as well, because to him, seeing most men working in the field, I think he cannot picture me working with all these hundreds of men in the field. Um, so he kind of lead me into doing social work. That's how he do things. He doesn't tell me no, but he would tempt me into doing things that I like. So even since I was young, when I asked him if I can go to my friend's house, he would not say no, but he would say that, oh, when you bring your friend to our house, I will prepare a barbecue party for you, things like that. So similarly, he didn't tell me don't be an engineer, but he tell me that, oh, I found one a place, an orphanage that they have like 1,000 of children, and I really want to help them, but I have no time. Can you help me with that? And that's how I start my career. So during the first year, I was helping him with helping orphans, and actually that's the first time he teach me how to do social enterprise. At that time, there's no word social enterprise. It's like 32 years ago. I still didn't know the word social enterprise, but that's how he taught me to do it. At the same time, he asked me if I can help him with his new home. So during helping the children, on building a home for him, I learned a lot about construction, and then I also learned a lot about poverty, because not all the children are real orphans, but a lot of them come from a very poor family, from border Thailand, from provinces. So I was in touch with poverty, at the same time learning construction, and it's a destiny. I think uh, when I start doing construction, it's just my personality that I like to deep dive into details. So when I start building home for him, I start learning construction and learning about real estate industry. I went to see a lot of good home building in Thailand and start to learn about other developer. And then I realized that there's a lot of good housing. But on the other side, I'm in touch with poverty. I also realized that uh, the poor people live in the most expensive home because the quality is so bad that they have to fix it all the time. You know what I mean, right? That the the poor people live in the most expensive home, buy the most expensive things. I work very closely with construction worker in the site. I'm with them every day, walk the site, talk to them, eat the things that they eat, buy the things that they buy. And I realized that poor people buy the most expensive things. For example, I can buy a big bottle of shampoo, but they cannot. They have to buy a small pack, small, a very small package of shampoo to use daily because they have less cash. So, so during that 2 years when I built my other house, I was in touch with poor people, people who really need day-to-day money or need, and I was helping poor children, poor family, and that lay a very important foundation in my career. And so my passion at that time is to build low-income housing. And I did. I started with low-income housing, and then I hit by just after I started my business for 2 years, I was hit by Tom Yum Goong crisis, 1997. Oh, but I think you want to lead to one point that why do I do social work while working? Because of the social work that I'm helping my father, I realized that there's never enough money to be to help, and donation doesn't help all the time, because if you wait for donation, people are very kind, a lot of people donate, but when the economic is bad, some people cannot donate. But the children doesn't stop eating. They need to go to school. They still need to grow up. They need to eat. They need shelter and everything. So I was telling myself that why don't I start my own business so that I can have recurring income to help the children. So from there I start my business because of that social purpose, and we donate 2% of our revenue to do the social part, and that is very, to me, I think it's a very sustainable model. As long as your business is still running, you still have to pay salary. I look at my social cost as a commitment that I have to pay salary. So as long as the business still run, we never lack of money to help the social. And back to the real estate business. I'm in real estate business. I start with low-income housing, and I was putting a lot of attention on quality. I want to make sure that people who buy my house, they don't have to keep fixing it.
Yeah.
And that's how we start the 30-year warranty. But because of 2 years of experience in business, with engineering background, no business degree, no idea about doing business, hit by Tom Yum Goong crisis, I was really, really difficult time, and it's I stopped doing real estate for 7.5 years. Went into construction trading and pay up my debt took me 7.5 years to pay back all the debt, and then we start real estate business again. But this time because at that time I was working on low income housing, and all my customers lose their job. It was really difficult time for them and for me. We did not take their deposit. Everyone tell me that because they cannot take, according to contract, we can take their deposit. And I did not do that because my father say if I do that, I'll be he say I will be. There's a Thai proverb like you are squeezing blood out of the crab.
Yeah.
They lose their job, and they put their saving into buying your house. If you take their money, like you're squeezing blood out of the crab. You are killing them. You are very mean. So I didn't do that. Luckily, he teach me that, so I didn't do that. So even during the difficult time, all the fams, our employee, we call him fams, was willing to reduce their salary more. We already reduced the salary at the time, but they were willing to reduce their salary more to pay back the deposit that the customer have been paying us. And that is another very touching experience, because I didn't go myself, but all the people who went to give back the money, they say the customer was so happy. They were crying happy because they already lost their job. By paying back the deposit, they used to pay us monthly, so we return them monthly. It's almost like they received their salary.
Yeah.
And we help them and their family a lot. And I think that is one important lesson to my team, to my fans, that giving bring a lot of happiness. Regardless of how difficult situation we have to go through.
So you're working with like this orphanage people, right? And you're being asked by your dad to build his new home because he was thinking that you were still in architecture. And your degree from Boston University College was in electrical engineering. And by the way, to the audience, electrical engineering is one of the most difficult engineering disciplines of the engineering that you could take. It's kind of almost on par with engineering physics. The two most difficult ones are electrical engineering and engineering physics, because there's so much math in there and it's so new. And so it's harder than chemical engineering or civil engineering and so on. So that's quite remarkable in its own right. And then you take on this project, your father's home, and you learned a lot. You learned a lot about construction and things like that. But it also shows you have natural ability too, because electrical engineering is very difficult. And then you're taking that kind of talent you have and applying it to learning about construction and the real estate business. But because you're seeing the poor side of life, the people who are challenged, who don't have a lot, then you think I'm going into low income housing, because you saw this challenge when you're working with people who don't have a lot, that they end up paying so much because of maintenance on their places, and they end up, because they can't buy in bulk, they end up spending more per unit. And so you wanted to address that. So you created a company to address that. But you went into a crisis where, people are losing their jobs and things like that. So again, you sacrificed or you gave, right? You and your team gave to ensure that you could help these families, even though they lost their jobs and things like that. So you're trying to cover those ends, but that laid the base for what you ended up going into another kind of another transition in the work that you do. So I could see all of these elements of making up in your philosophy of of what you're doing, because even back then you're thinking we've got to get a top line 2%. So not after profit, not after EBITDA, but top of line is very difficult, right? And thinking that as just a cap expense like any other, like salaries and everything else. It's an expense, and that's you just have to do it, and you make a commitment like any of the other kind of operational or OPEX expenses that you have, right? Operational expenses that you have for running the company, or the cap expenses that you have that you're running the company. But you learn a lot of lessons from that, and then that led you to kind of rethinking about your business, and went back into kind of the commercial real estate side. And how did that philosophy change when you were with DTGO and then NQDC and then all the labs? Can you describe that journey of where you are today?
Because of Tom Yum Goong crisis, 1997, I was really broke, work really hard, to pay back all the debt for 7.5 years. And then I didn't want to come back into the real estate business. But because my sister, she was building a school. They have her own school, and she was building a new school. And she doesn't want her school to be alone. She wants to have the community around school. So she keep asking me that please, come and help build a community. So I decided to come back into real estate business. But this time I tell myself that let's don't start with low income.
Yeah.
Because when they lose their job, there's nothing the business also go down, and we still have to help them. And my father used to tell me that if you want to help the poor, you have to learn how to bring the money from the air and share with them. He said, if you want to work with poor people, do not put your hand into their pocket, because they don't have much, and you won't make money. You will only hurt them. So he said that if you want to help the poor, you have to learn how to do business, that you bring the money from the air and share with them. So when I restarted the real estate business, I started high income hopping. So, and because, like when I start working, I have a lot of time to spend with the children and to visit the poor, and but as the business grows, or as we be more responsible for more staff and customer and things like that, I start to want more time to do what I like. And then I start to tell myself that I should be doing what I like, and to use my time as most valuable. And then I also realized that so actually I create another purpose for me. Helping the children, I have my team working on, and my main job is to make money, right? To do business and to make money. And it's not fun to me. So I create another purpose by being in the real estate business, that I realized that we destroy a lot, because developers like to move mountain to put next to the ocean or river. So if you look at the world, normally it's flat land around the river and the ocean area, and then the mountain is inland. But we bomb the mountain, take the cement, and build condominiums next to the ocean, river. So that's what developers do. We actually destroy a lot. So I start to create a new purpose for me to make my work meaningful and my time at work meaningful. But how can I be a part on destroying less helping more and improve the industry sometimes. So I started to create this new purpose in my career. At the same time, delivering the thing for my customer as if I build my father and my mother house. Like when I always tell my team that when we start a new project, I always remind my team that who do you love more? If you have little kids, you might love your kid the most. Or some people are really attached to parents who love their parents the most. So by building the home for them, you have to think as if you're building it for your child, your father, your people who you love the most, for them to be healthy, for them to be safe. So by creating the new programs that let do good thing to the world and do the best thing to our customer, it's actually creating my new dream. So that's how but to build a very healthy home, need a lot of knowledge. We have to understand what kind of material bringing toxic, how to build a ventilated home, how to build a breathable home, how to create a good environment one so that people can be healthy, how to design in a proper way so that people can be safe, that they don't get up at night and slip or fall down or hit something that block their way. So things like that really make me happy to do. And that's why, so we start to setting up research center. In the beginning, it's not a research center, but a research team. And then as we gather a lot of knowledge about how to build a safe, happy, safe house, healthy house, healthy home, we gather a lot of knowledge. So later on, we decide to set up a research center to share knowledge. Not only that we build a safe home, a healthy home, but we enter to be how to make people be happy. We go in depth with brain study, what type of space make people feel less stressed, what type of color, lighting, things like that. So our research team at the moment are working on so many things that related to people happiness, health, and from there we extended to animal and nature. Because as I mentioned that I also realized at the same time that our business, our industry destroyed a lot. So we start researching on how to destroy it, how to be part of saving the environment and the world. So we do, and it's not the environment and the world composed of not only human, but animal, insect, plant, and other energy in the world. So we start to, on the other side, we start to work on research on those things and see how can be more benefit to this world. I think the most expensive things in life is time, because you really don't know when you're gonna die. Some people die as a baby. Some people die they were young. Some people die when they get old. Some people get die by accident or whatever. So you really don't know that today you go to sleep if you're gonna wake up tomorrow, or tomorrow you go to work, you don't know you're gonna get hit by the car or not. So I really value time as the most expensive things in life. So I want to make sure that every day, every minute, every hour I spend is meaningful to me, valuable to the world and to people around me. So not only we set up a research team, research center, and then start doing a lot of research on various things. So we So we start to register as a research center and then to share the knowledge. So we make sure that whatever we learn got share out, and um, if it can inspire someone, especially young generation to do things like what we like to do. They don't have to start from zero. They can, take on all the knowledge and make it better. I don't know if I answered your question.
So that's really, I mean, it's really interesting. I can see this a journey where you learn lessons about you wanted your mother and your father to have quality and to be safe, and but you understood that you wanted to create that kind of ethic of safety, and so when you're doing development, you want to make sure that it's healthy, it's safe, it's good spiritually. I mean, it's good for you from a cognitive standpoint, right? Stress, you're trying to minimize stress and anxiety and things like that. The use of colors, or the use of space. You want to make sure that the materials are will last a long time, and you want to make sure that the materials you use are sustainable, and you want to make sure that you're involved in this kind of cycling of waste material and things like that. So you're not adding waste to the environment, but you're repurposing waste so that you're not making the environment, you're making the environment better. Also, you realize that when you're doing development, commercial development of any sort, you realize that there's insects and animals, and there's water, and there's this whole biosphere around it. And you want to make sure you integrate into that biosphere. And in fact, if anything, add to the health of that biosphere that's around it. So you're trying to leave a positive impact, a holistic impact to the environment, but you also want to make it holistic for the person as well, from a good sense of well-being, a safe environment, clean air, and you create a research facility to look at how that could be done, and you share the research from that research facility. And that's like, what kind of materials can we use that could last longer, that are safer to use? How can we repurpose things that people typically throw away? Maybe we can reuse it, like plastics and things like that. Maybe we can reuse it in a way that's sustainable. How do we integrate our environment, what we do with the environment, so that it adds to the environment? How do we create this safe living space and become a model for others, and set a trend, right? And so you create these research facilities to share the experience that you gained. Do you have a crown jewel development that you think really epitomizes all of this thinking that you have, but also has goodness and this love at its heart as well?
Every, people ask me which project you like the most. I say I love all the project I build because every project have its own purpose. But we always make sure that we have purpose in doing business and doing project. So we would come up with the right purpose, looking for the right land, and develop a project. So a lot of projects are very meaningful to me. But currently, one of the projects that can demonstrate the most that I was sharing with you, the ideas, is the project called the Forest Here. And it's a big size project. It's about 400 rice, that is 100 something acres. Not sure how to convert that, but it's about 1,000,000 square meter development. And normally we have the policy of not to kill. So normally when we develop property, we always make sure that we remove the animal in the construction site first. But the big size development like this, very difficult to remove all the animals. I just give the policy to my team that please make sure we remove the animal before we start construction. But I believe that because of the culture of the community, because people have been, they join me because they like the philosophy and everything. So they have been doing extra. They have been going extra mile to do things. All my researcher, this PhD student, everything, they actually set up a camp in the construction site, for 3 months to really study about the biodiversity, because the animals, they live in different places and they come out at different times. So they really put the effort to be there, to really observe what type of animal come out what time, to find where they are. After 3 months, they take another month to remove all of them with document, with report and study about them. And to me, I really appreciate. And not only our fans doing that, but the contractor, the worker also helping us in saving them. So what's special about this project is that it demonstrates that, the world is not all about us. It's not about, even the business world is not about making money alone, but how to make money at the same time, creating impact and save life. And, sometimes we focus on creating big impact, but to those animals, to those insects, it's their life, right? So even little things like that, I think it creates a lot of impact to them, whether they know or not. Like, for example, like soil turtle. Now, if you start moving the soil, you start to do the soil fill or move the land, they would hide underground. That's why they call it soil turtle. They would dig the soil and hide under the soil. So if you land fill the land, you will kill all of them. So I think creating impact is not only about big things, but it how to say, it look like a small thing, but it's very big to their life, because otherwise they would just die, right? So from there, I think the whole project doing a lot of details that creating big impact to life, to environment. Another thing we do is that the project is to demonstrate how to live together in 4 generations, closely with nature. I believe that one of the purpose of this project is to allow people to be in touch with nature and to love them. Because if you love something, you want to protect it, right? Like you love your children, you love your family, you love your pet, you will protect it. So I think in order to save this world, we have to create love, or seeding the love. If you love the tree, you will not destroy the tree. So that is part of the project purpose. By sometimes it's not that you don't love them, but a lot of times by not knowing them, you start to be afraid of them, right? Because when you don't know snake, you're afraid of snake. But actually, there's so many types of snake that doesn't hurt you. So many insect and animals that doesn't harm you. But by not knowing them, sometimes it make you afraid. And sometimes when human or people being afraid, they start to destroy. But what I try to do is that to bring back the nature and all these things back into our life. And that is how we used to live long time ago before the technology and things like that. We used to live very closely with nature. So that's why I was hoping that this project can bring back the nature, so that people who grow up, children who grow up in this project, will love the animal, love the insect, love the nature, and learn more about them and not to be afraid of them. Once you have the knowledge about them, you know what is danger and what's not danger. Um, and then you'll know how to live with them or treat them by not having to kill off them or destroy off them. So that's one of the main purpose of doing the forest series. Um, the I can talk 3 days about the forest here, how we plant the trees, how we move the rock, how we save the animals. So I don't want to take too much of your time.
But there's so much really transformational thinking in this, right? I mean, the fact that your research teams went and took a look at and lived with the animals to try to figure out when they came out, when they were available, where they were, so that you could safely remove them while you're doing the construction, and then you can transplant them back, and so that there's still this integration with nature. You wanted to make sure that there's this seamless integration between generational living, because that's very natural, generational living, right? From seniors to people who are sort of younger than seniors and very young people, just all these different kind of levels of the population, but also then they can walk amongst there's trees in there, but you wanted to make sure you didn't disrupt the trees. You get water and other the biodiversity is maintained, and that's just on the ecosystem side. But then even on the material side, I mean, you created new kinds of building materials so that you have this sustainable kind of recycling sort of mentality as well, right? I mean, there's your water system, the way you cool things. It's all groundbreaking. Now that it's quite amazing, all of the science that you took such special care into doing this development. I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll probably tack on links to some of your videos, so that the audience in your profile, so that the audience can see. In fact, I'll ask James for that, if he can give me some of the videos, so that and not just one, but there's one that talks about your transportation system, your cooling system, your heat exchanges, and things like that, how that all works. There's another one that kind of gives an overview of all of the thinking that we went into it. You're also developing a metaverse for it. Can you tell me about that? I mean, and what you hope to do with the metaverse part of this thing.
You see,
right?
You see, even though I like art and things a lot, and I talk about the animal and trees and everything, but the technology you mentioned about the water system and everything is part of my engineering love. So I also really enjoy putting in learning about technology and putting in technology in to make everything better, to make people's life better. Um, and and I know that because we do a lot of research on future, and and um and we know that the world changed so fast. Mm. During the COVID time, we all have to work online. Mm. Then I start, my husband and I, he's in entertainment business. He do animation, and I'm in real estate business. Normally our business are quite separate, but during the COVID we work from home. Mm. So we see each other all day. We listen to each other meetings, and so somehow um somehow there's the integration of thinking that um let's do a virtual world. I have the physical world, he have the digital world. How can we do a digital world that um that can make the world even better? Because there's a lot of limitation in physical world, but there's limitless in digital world. So we were thinking about let's make a virtual world together, the, a world that that have good governance, you know, the world that bring people to do good. To me, goodness is when people ask how can you define goodness? To me, goodness is happiness. When you do bad things, you often have guilt. We know what is good and what's bad, but when we do good things, it's always light up our heart. So we were talking about let's do a world that people can do good happily, not like freedom, a clean world that people don't cheat, don't say bad things, don't do bad things. But how can we create the environment to bring the goodness out people? Because I believe that in everyone there's good and bad. It depends on the environment or situation that you turn the good side of people out or you turn the bad side of people out. So we were talking about if we can create this virtual world and provide the environment and the technology and everything that people to close the gap of the negative thing in the real world. For example, like how to make the world that people are more equal. How to make the world that people can make money with doing good things. How to make the world that people realize that nature also have life, animal also have life, also have love, also have family. But at the same time, create the economic that when you spend time in this virtual world, you experience not only good things, but you can earn. So these are the purpose of the project we are working on. The bigger platform, the platform that we are working on, the direction we're working on is called Translucent. It would allow many metaverse worlds to be connected, many virtual worlds, big or small, to be connected. The word that I'm working on is called Ideally. It's to mimic the physical world into the virtual world, but adding in a lot of impossible things that you can do in the real world into the virtual world, and then create digital assets. So most of our customers doesn't know yet that they will have digital assets once they have their condominium transfer. We haven't properly announced it, still under working. But in future, when they buy our home, they will have the digital home that they can control their home digitally, and it will become NFT as well. So, and if they sell their physical home, they can keep their digital home as a digital asset. So there's also many details to this. It's not really public yet, but I think maybe next year will be more public.
You're making a little bit public because we're talking about it.
Yeah, it's another meaningful work to do. A lot of fun, a lot of creativity, a lot of people who have dreams working with us. And we call this group Dream Crafter.
Yeah, I mean, you got the DTGO, which includes Magnolia Quality Development Corporation, or MQDC, and you do property development, and you got this great brand that caters to a range of healthy, sustainable lifestyles, but with goodness and love at its heart. I would say that's sort of the foundation of everything you do. And then you talk about MQDC Ardelius as this kind of metaverse that connects the real world with the virtual world. And because it's virtual, it adds to the sustainability and happiness of all life, right? And this kind of love pervasiveness, positivity pervasiveness. And it adds another dimension because then you don't have any limitations, right? And so I think it's a really interesting project as it continues to mature because you're really addressing it from all angles. And I mean, I was fortunate to have more than one tour for instance, so I could tell the audience it's really outstanding. There's nothing in the world that can compare to it in terms of the true meaning of sustainability, the true meaning of biodiversity, the true meaning of having this kind of embracing of lifestyles, but also mutual respect about all life that's integrated within the system. Even a walkway that's at the treetop, so you're not disrupting the trees, right, and things like that. So, I mean, it's just so carefully thought out, every aspect of it. Even there's no compressors on balconies because you've got this other system of cooling that just again is just remarkable. It shows such clear thinking of the future and sort of the integration of everything, but respect for all. So I think it's remarkable. One of the things that I saw when I was at Bristol is you see these robots, and can you talk about some of the kind of projects where you have where like you've got Oberdroid and Obertrons, right? Yeah, can you talk a little bit about those systems and things like that? So
Yeah, beside the virtual, you know, the technology is going into many directions. I'm a big believer of robots. I believe that they will be part of our life soon and future. So it's not my expert area, but I just like to be in touch with it. So by learn about them, we set up a business. Um, and we started a security robot, and we also work with other robot partners. But I think that they are future part of our life. Mm. and and eventually they'll become part of our family. So we not only be thinking about it's not my expert to build robot, but it's my expertise to build home. So not only building home for people and animals, we're also thinking about building home for robots to be part of the family in such a way that they can take care of themselves in the home. So we're actually working on another project about this one I work with a partner, so it's actually that project, but I'm building home so that that robot can be integrated with the home.
I mean, that's
I
really
not project yet until they announce, but it will be a very another interesting how we integrate nature with robotic, with NFT, with virtual world.
yeah. I mean, I mean, we're doing this, but recently, I mean, at CES, Jensen Huang gave out an open source model called Cosmos, the World Foundation model for autonomous vehicles and robots, right? And you have the Unitree robot for the home, which will be released. You have the Figure One series and Atlas that have autonomous capabilities. There's all of these kind of integration to make these things a lot smarter. There's AGBot World, which is a company, but they created an open source platform with over 1 million kind of, I call them examples, so they call them trajectories, but that part's open source, the people collaborate. So your vision, it will become reality. And so it's just remarkable because you've been planning this for so long, and yet you're doing these joint ventures to make sure that you can get these technologies. You're thinking about home intelligent systems. You got the Unisys green power designs so that you're environment friendly. And you got Brights, the lifestyle and the entertainment side. You got DT Design, the architectural studio part of what you do. You got D Supreme, which is on procurement and trading. You got Digital Prosperous, which are ethical finance, Digital Life Corporation, which is on digital assets, which you as alluded to. You had DTXM, which is procures and develops furnishing, building materials. And you already talked somewhat about your labs. You talked about the Research and Innovation for Sustainability Center of Risk, which I've visited more than once, and really the first Asia research base for sustainable building with a focus on well-being. But I would say globally, the work you're doing is unique. I haven't seen anything that quite matches anywhere in the world. What you're doing with this pervasive thinking about biodiversity and sustainability and integration and respect for all. I mean, you got the Future Tales Lab, which I've also visited. When you're looking to analyze the future of human well-being and how can you prepare for that, looking years into the future. And I mean, you got your super lab, but I mean, you got this brand ideation lab, the creative lab, design lab, the unbox lab, the urban action lab. I mean, you got all of these different labs, and you're willing to share a lot of this work with the public, because when you create a new sustainable material, you say, well, we're going to use it, but we're going to share it so that other people will have better materials, right? And it'll create a new standard. I mean, just remarkable. Really, there is no one in the world that it has this the vision and the ability to integrate all of these different pieces. In that discussion, did I miss anything?
I think you missed things that you don't know yet.
Oh, yeah, right.
Next time you come, I will show you a few more exciting things that I cannot tell you now.
Yeah, I mean, I remember back in 2018, you were showing me your vision of going to today and even into the future, and I was just amazed at just the deep thinking. But I can see your father's influence as well from that little girl and thinking of the other and the impact it's going to have, and making sure you're learning from and taking corrective action for positivity. But you do so much on the social impact side and the social initiatives. Can you talk a little bit more about that? You already talked about early on in your life where your dad kind of kindly guided you into, looking at youth and who had underprivileged situations. And you talked about how you did an early foray into low-income housing because you wanted to have impact, but you realized that as your dad again gave this lesson, right? You can't take from people who don't have, right? So what's a model where you can still give and yet empower those who don't have? And those are your social initiatives. So can you talk about some of the foundations and things that you have, or some of those social initiatives?
Yeah, we have a foundation called Putra. We have a few foundations. Putra is focused on children education and villages, helping to build temple and things like that. We have a Dhanin foundation that is on healthcare to help people who have healthcare problems, including giving out funds to doctors and nurses. We have Forest for Life foundation to help about the animal and tree. And then we have Blue Carbon Society to help with water animals. And then my husband and I also have his foundation, Ahriyavraromp Foundation. To he likes to do things like pay forward to give people so that people give forward. So there's a lot of things being do together. But the main foundation that that we set up long time ago is the Trackstar Foundation. It reached out to our problems in Thailand. It, um, if you look at the people working in our foundation, it's only, big, the team is only 20 something people, not a big team. But I think over the 30 years, we have been touching or changing people's life about more than 30,000 children already. And the way we work is that we look for champion because we don't have big team to go around and we don't have people who we can support with money, with amount of time, but we cannot hug every children. We cannot tell them we love them, to every kid every day as they need it, as if they have parents. So we always look for champions. We look for people who really care, but lack of cash and facility. We're looking for teachers who really care. Some really kind teacher adopt so many children who run away or street children, and they live together in a very poor environment, but they love each other. Some temple adopt so many orphans. So we're looking for champions like this. And then we would work with them very closely. We would go in and earn their trust first. Normally, we would start with making sure that they have enough food, they can pay their bill, electricity bill, they have shelter, and we would not interfere with their way of living for a couple of years until we earn the trust that we are not here for other purpose. We don't need to be known. We don't need to. We are not taking anything. We are not changing them. Not like we give them the money and they have to do what we want to do, or follow our guidelines. But we get to know them. They get to know us. We earn the trust. And then after we have the trust and we know each other well, then we start working together how to improve the situation, or how to, if we can improve the education this way, we can improve the way they're living. So it's more like a partnership. This is how we work that because we are not doing, I'm a big fan of working with partners. Because we know we are not good in everything. We are, we don't have time for everything. But if you have the right partner for the right purpose, then it creates a lot of impact. So that's how the foundation works. We work with partners all around Thailand. And we don't need to be known.
Yeah, and because you're gaining trust and you're working as really almost like a family member when you're working with underprivileged children, for example, then you're creating generational change, right? Because you're working as a peer, not as a boss. You're working as a peer, like an equal, and then working with them to ensure that they have a quality of life and quality education, and it'll create systemic change, right? Rather than individual change, a systemic change that then is generational, and they themselves will pay it forward, and they'll probably come back to work with you, right? The graduates of the program, and that's a success of the program. So just an amazing sort of program for underprivileged children. And then you mentioned you got the healthcare focus program, you got the marine ecosystem program, you got the meaningful impact environmental initiatives program. You got all of these different programs, right? The Givers Network, right? To connect and enhance for impact for good. I mean, the list goes on and on, not to mention, you mentioned earlier, and you were even doing this when you were first getting into business, and that is saying, 2% top of line revenue. And that's much more difficult. That's definitely, definitely much more giving than after profits, right? So, so that's just like a guidepost for the world. You've also taken on a number of initiatives from an organizational standpoint, like you talked earlier about the FAMZ, and we're trying to realize the full potential of the people, your colleagues, and you got this inverted tree where you're the tree roots and you're the leaves, and you're there to serve the FAMZ, the colleagues that you are in your company. I remember you showing me some of these models back in 2018, and you were already thinking about it for before that. And then and I was thinking, oh, I mean, it's so brilliant, right? And you're empowering. So, and then there's the university where they can access courses and knowledge for personal professional development. And you just built a new campus, right? Campus Us or Camp Us. Yeah, where people can have extensive environments for learning, entertainment, well-being, sport, and so on. You got can you talk a little bit more about FAMZ and Camp Us and this inverted tree, new university, and this model? Like what inspired you to say, you know what, we're the tree roots, we're here to serve the leaves, and the leaves are your employees, and you got cross interdisciplinary teams, right, where they can work on projects. Can you talk about some of that, how that works, and then I think it'd be useful for other people around the world, right? So.
Yeah, there were times, because doing business have up and down, right? There were times that we have to go through difficult times, and I was thinking that when I first write the vision of the company, but thinking that the purpose of the company, actually we are doing business to do the social, to have a sustainable income to do the social. What if the business fail? Then the social gone as well. So when I was writing the vision of the company, thinking of how to make the company live as long as possible, like a living company, in order to carry on the work we do to support the children. And then I start to research about lifespan of things. Then I realized that the business organization have a very short lifespan. A lot of them close down within 1 to 2 years. A lot, right? Very few of them live 100 years compared to every company that open and close every day. Then I realized that business organization have the shortest lifespan. Then I start to question what type of organization have a longer lifespan. Then I start to trace into like our education, have a longer lifespan. Sometimes you go to school you go to university for 4 years. You love the university forever. When you have money, you still have to bring back to help the university. You love the teacher. But a lot of employees who work in the company don't love the company, even the company pay them. So I start to analyze what is the difference between the university model and the business model. And then after that, we look into like what else live longer than university. Then we start to realize that religions live longer than university in 1,000, 2,000 years or more. Then why does the religion live longer than university model? And I believe it's about, because in life, sometimes we enter into things that we cannot resolve and there's no reason, and we don't know what happened. So I think faith, belief, trust, hope is very essential to human or to life. So I think religion support you in that sense, many ways in that sense, beside other things that religion have to do to help people. So then I start to look at, and then what live longer than religion? Actually, country, right? Country stay for 40 or 4,000 years or more. And what live longer than country is races, right? And life. And eventually, what really live the longest is plant, water and plant and tree. Right? Maybe so we start looking into what live longer and what live longer and what live longer. And then we learn from them how to integrate all those positive things from those models into building organization. Tree can live for millions of years, right? The ecosystem of the forest, the tree live for millions of years. So we start to look into what, why, and how they live that long. And then we find that there's a big ecosystem that they supporting, helping each other, saving the environment, creating the right environment. So from there, we start to setting up, combine all those knowledge together. There's a lot of details. Combining all those finding together, and then we start to change our business organization into a organization, tree organization. And surprisingly, is by flipping the organization from organization like this into a family tree organization, it right away changed the leader mindset from from top down. They feel they have to be responsible for everything. They have to make decisions. They have to be responsible for their duties. People have to follow them, everything. But from flipping the organization is like taking the burden out of them, and the role change into supporting, nurturing. Yes, they still have to be responsible, but they would be responsible as if they have father or mother or parents or brother or sister to help nurture the young one. So by changing that, you can see that the mood change from controlling, stress and everything into loving, caring. And it creates different results as well. It creates a good environment to be in, and the whole organization becoming a family tree, brother, sister, and that is suitable to Thai culture. Thai culture, everyone up, the whole country is like a big family. And it make the workplace more happy, more fun, more relaxed. And it's like you can be, it's not like you're coming to work, but you are being among the family and friends and home. So we build this facility where they can have their work life, they can have their personal life. Yeah. We integrate the university model where every member we call fam can request to set up their own club. So at the moment we have so many clubs. We have singing club, we have music club, we have bicycle club, we have soccer club, we have badminton club. And we provide the facility within the campus, the badminton court, soccer, mini soccer field, and basketball field, and gym, running track. So we allow our fans to share their dream. They want to whatever they want to do, we support them setting up all this stuff, funding them a little bit. Yeah, but a lot of them they fund themselves extra. And during sometime in the when there's some situation like fire or things like that. The bicycle club actually volunteer to go out and help, bring food, bring uh, things to save people, and uh, not only is it's acting as a university club, uh, it's acting as a social club as well. When we have social work, they gather together to help, to support. And so it's bonding people, not only by work, because bonding in work situation is a lot of times create conflict. Because every work, you very know that every business, every work, you cannot do alone. So you have to work with many departments, many things. But there are often that gray areas that you don't know. Or there are often a gray area in the boundary that you don't know whose job it is. Sometimes we step over, sometimes we don't cross over and create problems. So by interacting only business create a lot of stress, sometimes become enemy. I often remind them that when you first enter the company, you are not enemy.
Yeah.
Why are you enemy now when you both focus on making the company better? So we realizing that there are those unclear boundaries that create conflict. I need to bring them out. It's very hard to fix those boundaries because they're unknown, right? But by making them become friends, afterward they sing together, they dance together, they play music together, they play sports together. By making them become friends, it allows them to work together on those gray areas instead of making enemies, but work together as a team to resolve the gray area. So that is the university model.
Good.
And again, I can talk about this all day long. There are many models we are working to integrating all those finding and knowledge into building organization.
I mean, this could be like a Harvard Business School case study. One of your research groups could actually publish a report to share the thinking of your organizational model, because other people around the world could learn so much from it. Have you considered or have you published about it at all?
No, not really. We only do it internal, but a lot of people visit our office and we share the knowledge. But we haven't do any publication. There's a lot of detail we learn a lot from nature. And nature is the biggest teacher. Well, so not only we create an ecosystem within the organization, we look at our partner of the ecosystem, and the social and the community customer are part of the big ecosystem. Actually, everything is one nature. So there's a lot of details.
Yeah, excuse me. I mean, it's quite fascinating and very unique, and it works and results in a very creative environment. And I mean, this idea of FAMZ and this inverted tree idea, and it's because you went back and looked at, what are the things that sustain? You said, well, universities sustain, but no, there's things that are older than universities that sustain. You look at countries, then you look at cultures, and you look at religion, and you think, you know what, tree ecosystems have been around for a long time. And then you use that as this model where you're the tree roots and you're there to nurture, sustain, and support and mentor the leaves, which are your colleagues, right? And it's such a sharing environment. And then you create organizational structures for the FAMZ, like the university, where people can get all sorts of skills. And then you create this campus where you can learn and do entertainment, well-being, sport, art, hobbies, and healthcare together. It's just quite beautiful to actually see it in motion, and I've been at your campus, and it's just quite marvelous. And in fact, you're being awarded like HR Asia Best Company to Work for awards because it works and it's a model that other companies can learn from. And I remember in 2018, we did a visit to the Gates, Melinda Gates Foundation, right? The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And then we did the Global Good Lab, and they offered you a seat at the creative table and things like that. But I could even see the elements there because they had a solution, but the solution involved kind of planting a genetic element to a mosquito, but you wanted to make sure that mosquitoes were, like there wasn't death involved, right? That it was respect for all life. But it's just fascinating from sitting with you and being so moved in 2017, where you shared your story, and I was just thinking this is unique and inspired, and it's genius in so many respects, and the world will learn from it. And that's why I wasn't surprised when that Unilever, I think it's the World Economic Forum, or there was this kind of consortium that came together to look at the world's top leaders, and you were one of the ones interviewed and selected, and that's continually happened because all of this caring and giving, right? And I can see the roots going back to your dad's lessons and continuing this. And so it's amazing, all of this institutional knowledge just within the family, and then from nature. And then it's inspiring everything that you're doing in your companies and your social enterprises and with the organizational structure. And I find I've known you for a number of years, since 2017, and I'm learning more. The interview is that I'm learning again, and I'm a leaf being mentored from the tree root, right? Being nurtured so that I've learned more, so I can share and be a better service to the work that I do. So we covered so many different aspects, from the inflection points in your life to your early years where you went into engineering, and you, because you have a creative side, so it's kind of this duality of engineering or architecture, right? You ended up electrical engineering. I didn't know it was electrical engineering. It's the first time I heard that. So, and I know because I work in academic organizations, the big ones like the ACM and IEEE, the electrical engineering is the most difficult of the engineering disciplines, other than the pure research one, which is engineering physics, but they're kind of comparable, right? And then you end up building this home for your dad, but you learn so much, and you get into construction, you get into low income sort of construction, but you learn many lessons from there. Then you decide, you know what, I'm going to pivot, because then I can still do more, because you have to be sustainable to give, right? You have to be sustainable and to have lasting impact. And so you start these companies, and there's so many different divisions of these companies, and we talked about the research elements part of it. And then every project is equally important. As you mentioned, they're all your kind of gems. Just the current one is first is, and there's a lot of energy going into that. I think you mentioned 1 million square meters, so that would make it about 11 million square feet if it's 1 million square meters. But or let's say it's even if it's 600,000 square meters, that would make it like 7 million. It's a factor of 10 usually, right? Bigger, or a little bit more than 10 to 11 in square feet. So here in the West, we think of feet, and that's a big development, and but yeah, very holistic in the way you think about how that's working. But you're also into the future, and there was this period of Metaverse that was very popular, and then it died down because AI took over. But now there's this attraction again to the Metaverse, and also to blockchain and distributed finance, and that's gaining popularity again. This idea of NFTs are gaining popularity again, right? And then Meta, they're coming out with these new glasses, Ray-Ban, and so it's making a form factor that's easier. So now you're getting more of the digital twin conversation. Even Jetson at CES in January talking about Omniverse. Well, that's a metaverse, right? And creating even a foundation model for robots, but you've already designed for robots in the home, just like you designed for multi-generational living in the same space where it says that you have a total integration with the environment, even biodiversity, and making sure that all these aspects are respected. I mean, just so many different aspects, both holistically and the big vision to the minute detail, to making sure things are right. And you're continuing to learn. It's just so inspiring. You won every conceivable award I can think of, and continuing to, and that's really a recognition from your peers or from the community that you're doing good work. It's recognition, right? And it continues. Is there something that you want to discuss that we didn't cover? Well, I can tell you this, I'm re-energized to do more, to be a servant leader for the world, just from this discussion with you today. I just, every time I sit with you or with your husband, Dr. Tan, I go, oh, I'm energized again. My soul is my soul is expanded. I feel like the Energizer bunny, and I get a charge of electricity to do better, right? So we're down to our last question, and our last question is, what kind of final recommendation would you leave the audience? And you can even add questions in there, or what questions would you like to leave the audience? It could be a combination of the two.
I think I don't know, I just gonna share how I see life. Hopefully it will be useful for other people. I just see life as temporary opportunity to learn and to do good things. As I mentioned before, I really don't know how long people can live. Everyone have different time span, but I feel like life is a gift. No matter what, you're born in this world, you're born in this world. You have ability to think, to do things, to be happy, to be unhappy is within yourself. So to me, I think life is very valuable and time is very precious. So I personally try to live my life happy every day while doing good things and creating impact to others. And I find that it's very meaningful. And whatever happened in life, good and bad, is all lesson learned. Eventually we will all pass. So I know that at the moment there's a lot of environment disaster going on around the world. There's a lot of economic problem. A lot of people are having problem with life. But again, I think that is part of our learning, spiritual learning this world. So whatever we have to face, everything is temporary. Just want to share the encouragement for everyone to move on. And everything is temporary. Everything will pass. Everything will, we can stay positive and take out the positive of whatever happened to us. A lot of time when we encounter problems, after it kind of, we look back, we learn about it. Sometimes we can even laugh about it. So to me, I'm about to be 57 years old. So there's a lot of life lesson in life that I have to go through as same as everyone else. But different people have different problems. But I keep myself positive every day. I keep my dream bright, and I keep my purpose in life as a guiding light, so that I can wake up every morning and be positive and work and walk the life the way I want to be. I don't know if I can say it clearly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a message of continuing curiosity and learning, and then whatever the ripples of life give to you, to take those life positive lessons to move you forward, and ultimately you can pay that forward as well, right? From your lessons and look at the optimistic sides of the lessons that can be learned, and ultimately that will make you happier, but then the people around you happier, and you'd be more apt to have an impact on happiness.
And more energy to walk during difficult times.
Right.
Just recently, I went to visit one of the orphanage where, and I saw all these kids who have no parents. Little kids, I saw these two little boys. We went to give food and toys to them. I went with my husband, my team, and I saw these two little boys eating. We give out grilled chicken, and they were eating the chicken very happily, and they were teaching each other, playing with each other, and the teacher come in and touch their hair and tell them to eat happily, things like that. And then I realized that to them, they might think that they are so unlucky, like why their parents left them, they have no parents, they have no one, they have no home, they have to live in orphanage. Yes. So to them, they might think that they are very unlucky. But to me, seeing them, I see that they are very lucky to be born. And I realize that no matter what, they still they should be thankful for people who bring them to life. Because imagine, no matter how unlucky they are, somebody pick them up, give them shelter. There's a friend who laugh with him, a teacher who care for him, people who don't know them but willing to bring them food, clothes. So I reflect that into my own life. Sometimes or many people like, and sometimes we enter a very bad situation and we might ask, why is this happening to us? Or why are we so unlucky? Or things like that. But if you look at the holistic, if you zoom out, you can see that actually how lucky we are. Things could be worse. Or there's so many miracles that make us go through life. But when you zoom out, you start to see that, when you look from different point of view, if you look from your point of view, sometimes you feel like, why life is so hard on me. But when you zoom out and look from other perspectives, you start to realize that how lucky how lucky we are. And life is so precious that we should really treasure it and use time as wise as we can, as happy as we can, as valuable as we can. So that is one of the things that I realized when I visited one of the orphanages a few months ago. That I feel that they might not realize how lucky they are, but they are. And oftentimes life like that, we not realize how lucky we are, but we are.
Yeah, and then I guess that's the key, is to be in the now and to reflect and be present to the joy that you're experiencing, right? And to respect all life and all circumstance, and for the treasure that it is and the gift that it is. Just like my time with you for 2 hours has been a gift. So, and I treasure it and it'll reverberate in all that I do. So, and, Thippaporn or Tawee, thank you for taking this time to share all of your wonderful stories, your lessons, your insights, your treasures, and the many gifts you've given all of us. So I'm very, very appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.